Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Lifting. Today's episode is being filmed on 5/16/25. Another Q&A. Per the usual, in all episode cases, I now open this circle within true benevolence and no conflicting agendas as of this moment in time. So, Joanna?
We are all one, and when one is harmed, all are harmed. When one is helped, all are helped. Therefore, in the name of who I am, and I am one with all there is, that only the highest good be done. We pray for you, your friends, your family, your loved ones, to let healing energies in. Let them love you, let them nourish you, and let them bring you to your highest good. We ask for benevolence now to come in with no conflicting agenda, in order that we may have this conversation in understanding. And we ask for malevolent or mischievous beings to be swept away so that we may have this conversation in peace. And with that, and with great blessings that we always send your way, we say so be it.
And so be it. And Isaac just reminded me, you mean douchebaggerous entities. I knew it. I knew at some point I knew that somebody was going to throw me under the bus for that one, but douchebaggerous. Okay. Okay. Hashtag douchebaggerous. Okay. Instead of debaucherous than the last one. So yeah, that shows how blind I got. But okay. Now we're going on to the affirmation blessing. You're always going to encounter opposition. It is how you handle it which defines you. Vesa. And I heard Isaac go, more fortune cookie wisdom from the glow bitches, he says. So somebody's going to beat him up for that one, but okay. Okay, first one.
Okay, question number one. It was mentioned in the ISIST, meaning ISIS not, video, that she was at the height of her power in the Atlantean times, but she was vampiring off of Earth power nodes. It was also said that landfill was also the strongest at that time and was much, much weaker come the Roman period. But why was landfill so strong before? He did the same thing as ISIS. Was he working out more? Protein shakes? He can't find his Atlantean UBS charging cable.
USB charging cable, yeah. This I find funny, and ISIST. I'm gonna have to remember this one because this actually replaces the she who shall not be named. We don't have to call her the witch anymore. It's ISIST. So it's EYECYST. So ISIST. So Isaac started to go sissy, like he took the I in ISIS and flipped it the other direction and went sissy at one point, but either works. So here comes the answer, the extremely lengthy answer by Poseidon. So /Inky. So ISIST, and he starts laughing. That makes me laugh, ha ha ha. Seeing as she looks through her Viewmaster at people she likes, this nickname makes perfect sense to me. She is creepy in every way possible, but what set him apart from her and why he became so much weaker by the Roman period is that, unlike her, he began to show some sort of conscience, some sort of re-emergence of spark, and he was grinning and smiling at that. This is why my father Odin spends so much time trying to bring him back from the brink of undeath by have a few avatars on Midgard to balance out that creepy vampire energy. The way this works is simple. For one, his original body cannot die, for if he does, he will just reconstitute somewhere else on Midgard, and not where he is currently frozen in Antarctica. Allowing him to leave there would be disastrous for everyone on Midgard because openly outward fights and battles would begin again, or our openly outward fights and battles would begin again. Though we do still fight, it is not like in the old days. Also, there was a time where we all were fat and slovenly. We fell into disrepair. After we all came to realize the errors of our ways, ISIST, and he went hee hee, No, he got a kick out of that one, actually. Thanks for the nickname, young man. I will use it and use it well. From you, your friendly neighborhood Aquaman. Peace out. Okay, as the young people say. Poseidon, Inky. And I just find that funny with ISIS. Now, the example that I could possibly give to what he is talking about being reconstituted somewhere else. This is actually just a Skyrim reference in the Soul Cairn, where you see the dragon reconstituting himself like a few minutes after you kill him. Uh, and that's in the Dawnguard expansion. Basically, the one vampire lady says, "Oh, he could take hundreds of years to reconstitute." He's back like less than 5 minutes later talking to you. So, certain types of vampires, like the Germain one, him especially, and a couple of others, are more master vampire level, where they just reconstitute somewhere randomly on Midgard on the Earth's surface, and they're not in said trap anymore. So they just keep him in some kind of suspended animation. Flash froze. This came from the flash freezing of what we know as Antarctica. That's a piece of Atlantis to flash freeze some of the nanotech. You see that in the movie Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, where you see all these zombified people that would be more like pre-programmed or in the midst of tech, like transhumanism. That's what happened towards the end of Atlantis. So I wanted to give some historical background there, and it had to be flash frozen. Some computers require it to be more cold to operate better, and they hit a quantum state. This one seems to be elements of the two. Yes, it's aware of itself. Yes, he's aware of himself. He can do telepathy, like in the movie. He took control of Orm and also Black Manta, but that was an in-little likeness. That was in the movie. The miter hat thing, that's Atlantis. All churchy type stuff is Atlantis likeness. So, and dress code, pretty much. So, we'll go on to the next one. This is a long question.
In Afghanistan, there was a 50 I'm assuming mile or meter, statue carved into a cliff face. The face had been cut off, laser ? And the leg badly broken. For some reason, there were large holes drilled or carved into the broken leg. It was claimed to be a Buddha statue, as were other similar monuments in the Bamyan Valley. The deep relief hole into the cliff face was very symmetrical and smooth. Anyway, during the war, it was said that the Taliban blew up the statues, but I could not find any conclusive video of this happening. They supposedly tried many ways to blow it all up, but oddly, no charring on the sandstone is visible. But behind the head, there are 3 symmetrical holes in the cliff, and around where the head was, even more perfect rectangular holes. So did they blow this up to enter the mountain behind the statue? What for? And what are the true origins and personage of the statue? There are also 33M or so carving next to it, said to be a female. Sorry, a long one.
Yeah, this is when those in the Arab nations and some of these people were going up and blowing up these monuments. You even saw an example in the Tom Cruise movie, The Mummy, where you saw them doing the same thing. They're going around trying to erase history. It's kind of like the whole BLM thing, taking down the monuments, or the Childhood Ends book, where the aliens or the demonic entities were taking basically erasing history so they could come back and rule over people, and the next generation wouldn't know who they were. Kind of like the be unburdened by what has been kind of statements. So this is essentially what those people were doing. And as for that statue, yeah, this seemed to me be a passage, them getting into a passage in the back. And here is an extremely lengthy answer by Poseidon Enki again. So, hello again, Poseidon here to say yes to this. It was an entrance to a long-forgotten area of my brother's kingdom. His monuments keep getting defaced, along with mine and others, because the hedge bed is that some of the others want to be able to unwrite bad history and come out all of this squeaky clean, so to speak. That said, the 2 statues in question were a passage to an underground element of my brother's kingdom, post-Atlantis. You are now wondering how he was moving about if he were frozen in time. Simple, really. He wasn't always able to be held. unfortunately. Then he was worshipped as king of the gods, and then all went to hell. Get it? The two statues were the locking mechanism to the underground chamber and subsequent antechamber beneath it. Though Hades was a dark elf and his brother stayed both above and below when needed. The holes were part of the lock in the old days. Just like in the Aquaman movie, we had the gears of the world, or aka the world engine. This is where your Antikythera device came in, a repop, so to speak, or repop of our earlier tech as humans figured out, or to be more accurate, where we're instructed after Atlantis' destruction on how to build such devices. That is all for now. Be seeing it. The Antikythera device. They showed the gears in the Aquaman movie. When they put the sweat in the machine and it started moving gears, they were hinting at the Antikythera device being Atlantean. They also did that with the island of Syracuse and the Dial of Destiny, Indiana Jones' Dial of Destiny. With I can't even remember the wizard's name now that they had him in that. But anyway, defended the Isle of Syracuse. It'll come to me before the end of this. So that, but this is, I thought that was actually interesting. So we'll move on. Okay.
Does the spirit of Robert Monroe have any advice or warnings regarding the HemiSync audio CDs?
Okay. Yeah, this is the first time I even heard, believe it or not, this shows how cultured I am. I did not even know who this person was, believe it or not. So I did get him for a brief period. He was very kind. These are full of programming and spells. Same difference. They were meant to lift, but also in the end sink. Get it? Sink. Sink to programming. Steer clear of them. Though steering streaming be far worse at times. It is far more manageable. Okay, I got to reread that line. Though streaming being far worse at times, it is far more manageable, is what he's saying. This is all I came to say this afternoon. Be well, both of you. Goodbye. And he waved to us. So this, what he's saying is about the rise and fall of all the different waves in the programming is what he's trying to say. The HemiSync audio CDs, it's actually those were worse. They could carry it almost like a spell trap or an edifice or some kind of trap, like the cursed file, the voicemail file I told people about years ago, where those CDs were trapping that in there, and it was even affecting the electronics around the house. TV was screwing up everything, and then when I finished getting rid of the archive, TV unscrewed up basically, or got fixed. This I find actually quite interesting. But this is about the music programming that we talked about all those years ago, where even bands speaking something could be carrying the programming in their voice. That's like essentially that quantum light language you're hearing about, but flipped to the negative connotation. It doesn't necessarily have, just because you call it quantum light language, does not mean it's a fancy term, but it does not mean that you can't perform spells with the voice. Kind of like the whole Skyrim premise with the voice, or Gandalf doing the thing with his voice against Sauron. So yeah, it's the same thing. So yeah, that I found actually very, very interesting. So we will go on to the next one.
When will they stop chemtrailing? How do we clean our soils from the heavy metals and such from it?
Okay. Who is that from, Isaac? Okay. They will stop when more people take notice. And to clean the soil, diatomaceous earth and zeolite. Those will keep pests off of your plants, veggies, and fruits. Hope this helps. Bye for now. Isaac. Yes, I've heard about the diatomaceous earth and the bugs. You know how sometimes you get those grubs that eat the leaves and such. Diatomaceous earth will keep that away. Zeolite is more of an kind of like a getting heavy metals out of the body kind of thing. It's a volcanic soil. So yeah, that stuff does clean up chemicals. I know like amber, frankincense, and myrrh help the surrounding. You don't want to use it around the plants, but it will help in the area, get rid of death energy and also some chemicals as well. I've also seen people throw some of that on some chemical spills and such as well. So I don't know when they'll stop the of the coming, other than the fact that, like he said, when people take notice. So, all right, we are going on the next one here.
Where did the Melungeons of Appalachia come from? Please elaborate. Thank you.
Okay. I had loosely heard of this, but I couldn't remember the name of it. So they are what you would probably see as multi-layered throwbacks, meaning both Atlantean DNA and Lemurian DNA, bondings of the Atlantean-Lemurian War, DNA from all sides, mutts, if you will. That is all. Bye for now, Isaac. What he was basically saying, the DNA came from both cultures. These were emerging. This is why they didn't fit anywhere, because these were people that thought that the war between them was dumb, and they came together. This is why these people had Native American DNA, had European DNA, had all sorts of DNA, and they apparently, though the two sides must have converged somewhere in Appalachia. I'm getting extremely high validation to that, where they remerged there, they merged there, and a new people were born at that, where it had Native American DNA, Scandinavian, European, Mexican, all of them, because it was Lemurian and Atlantean clashing, and they were the result, or the antithesis of that. So I will go on to the next one. This is also another one of these longies. The question, ironically, is at the very bottom, but the rest is context. So.
Okay, I did want to share with you that I am part of the obesity community and the obesity acceptance community and the morbid obesity acceptance community and the extreme eating competitions community. Even though I have not joined any of these, and even though I don't do extreme eating, I do consider myself part of these communities. I shared this because when I'm playing with my stuffed animal, Orlag, Bigfoot, I like to be silly and say that he's part of these communities and that he's going to eat nonstop until his tummy grows so big it'll become a planet. I was also sharing this because I saw a cartoon TV show where they have a chubby character, and every time he walks or jumps, there's a massive earthquake, and every time he jumps into a pool, there's a tsunami. And in the cartoon, whenever he was hit by anything, it would bounce back. One time a car hit him and it bounced back in the cartoon. They mentioned that he had a very strong gravitational resonance, an exotic matic core, an elastic body, and elastic energy storage so strong that his body was able to do these things. Is something like this possible? I was just curious.
Oh, that's like Majin Buu from Dragon Ball Z, Plastic Man from DC, or Mr. Fantastic, Richard Reed of the Fantastic Four in Marvel. That's kind of along those lines too, but in the opposite way, where they're Stretch Armstrong type of thing. But so this is actually interesting. Okay, this was obviously the rest of the question. Rest of this was, it's been a while though. I don't remember the name. I did remember the story earlier today, though, which is why I decided to share it with you. So yeah, this is interesting though. So Eddie, oh, sorry, didn't mean to say the name. Orlog here. Yes, there are indeed life forms that fit this profile. They are usually purple, pink, or indigo color. Majin Buu was pink, by the way. Dragon Ball Z, look it up. And come from a planet with a strange gravimetric gravity field. When they are able to come here to Earth, you will see the same behavior traits from them. Bye. And that was Orlok. Yes, I did have dreams of stuff like this where there were these odd life forms. They were purple. They had kind of a Thanos-like appearance to them, but they were chubbier. And if you look up the character Majin Buu, they were kind of a mix between Thanos and Majin Buu. Majin Buu looks like a big gumball with a head. So you can thank Japan for one of the most annoying protagonists in the entire anime world ever. He sounds really creepy. I mean, just look it up. This is what these ETs look like. They're actually disclosing a real thing, but just add like kind of a Thanos look to them with his clothes, pretty much like with his helmet and everything. This is what they look like. They sometimes are bounty hunters, sometimes they help in laboratories, sometimes they help with like some mechanical concerns, engineering or something like this. But they have these elasticized bodies. where it's not really gas or liquid that's in them. It's more like this, like what was said, this strong gravitational resonant exotic matter core. That's actually accurate. What was in the question there, and what was disclosed in that cartoon. So I find that fascinating because I have seen these things before, or I shouldn't say things. They're actually quite kind. Unlike the character of Majin Buu, who's actually quite mean. So that he had some kind of personality disorder because he absorbs a monk that's kind, but then he's this evil creation in a lab. They were telling you something. These aliens are more than likely, and I'm getting the feeling that they were a familiar that turned into a sentient life form, like you've heard in. That's actually, I just got a validation to that. So, because with a lot of these genetic species out there, like the Ebens, I call them the Camino-like aliens that are out in the Boatis star system, whereas they're for hire, like the Camino guys in Attack of the Clones. It's exactly the same, where they invented the stormtroopers. This is a thing. Lucas knew his crap there, and also. The name of that wizard has been driving me batty. I'm going to look this up really fast. So, use laser. Aha. Archimedes was the name of the wizard. So, Burning Mirror, which supposedly set ablaze a Roman fleet attacking Syracuse in 212 BC. That is the one that I was trying to think of. I had a brain fart. So, they showed Archimedes in Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, but they turned it into a time travel device that was on temporal coordinates type of thing. I get that because the reference, because Atlantis did have a lot of the time travel coordinates type tech. It would have had to have operated that way because of the firmament. So on like a spatial temporal coordinates. So I find that interesting. On relativity, you got relativity to deal with. So all right. Well, we're already at the end of this. So this was going to be a short one, folks. We're going to try to keep them to this because leave more room at the end for the other type of question answer, and it also leaves a little bit more for you guys to digest these, unlike that episode 8 where it was lengthy. So I will get to this spot here, and I actually need the foot. So need this. So forgot it was going to be Orlog talking. So all right, I got to get resituated here. All right. And now get everything situated. And okay. And they're drinking. Benevolent Orlog, I know you are around because you were around earlier when we did the channel for that last question. So okay. Okay, true benevolence and no conflicting agendas. So okay. It is yet another honor to speak in this capacity. I know energies have been high, emotions have been high, V2K and the mouth have been absolutely nonstop. You have your brain freezing, your brain frying, your situational little type of things where it's one thing after another kind of thing, or series of unfortunate events, things of this nature. This is something that is understandable. But the one thing that I did want to speak of, this was an issue that popped up recently with you guys, where you parted ways with someone and their fairy community decided to run amok. And the forest people, like myself, are quite irritated with such things. They normally very kind. Some are not. Some favor one group or over another. Some do not. I mean, some of our people, we have our people, like we speak to you guys, and Fuma and Seymour and Segron and them also, not only from Arizona, but also Spirit Lake in North Carolina. They do the same. I believe you have questions for me in this respect.
Yes, so Chris wrote these down. And in general, again, to talk a little bit about fairies, but to really explain a couple of things. What are fairy curses? What are echo thoughts? And what are curse rings?
Let's see. Fairy curses, echo thoughts, curse rings.
Mhm.
These all kind of, some go into the mouth, which would be echo thought. That would be the V2K bouncing old ideas and old memories in a warped fashion within the brain, also picking from the multiverse in a way and bringing in alternate things that aren't actually happening to you and you're interacting with nothing. It's basically a void, no insult to the void. Fairy curses and rings. They like to place harness rings on people that they do not care for, or that they think are being mean to them, or they think that are abusing the environment in some way, shape, or form. This is a load of horseshit, because they could be causing havoc for somebody who is actually innocent, but they aren't exactly to spec. Brownies do something similar, but they don't curse people. They just throw stuff at people, and they bitch a lot. You see them in the mythology sweeping, and like in Harry Potter, you see the house elves sweeping. And they're usually very kind. Duende or their counterparts, they're usually very, very kind. But when they get to the point when some get to the point, you have boggarts or their counterparts, which are crotchety. You have puckwudgies, you have grimpa. Grimpa have been very crotchety lately, and they're up there with duende and gnomes and leprechauns and all, and they're rather all like interrelated. Some of these were created life forms from back in the time of the Great Seeding, where there is a myth out there that the masters brought elemental forms here to help seed the earth. This is just a legend in the New Age community that has to do with the Great Seeding. This happened so long ago they don't know names to put to things. It's billions of years ago. Or not billions, it's millions, excuse me. With this being said, some will get butthurt if they think you've wronged somebody. If you didn't pay homage in the proper way, somebody is annoyed at the conversation. Wait a second. Leave now. It's like him and his mother had a conversation separately and together with them that they were trying to explain to them that nobody meant any form of harm, but they thought you guys were meanies, that they thought you betrayed a particular individual, things of this nature. They even went about and froze the chimes outside so they no longer made their pretty sound because they were displeased. They're highly displeased. And what they don't understand is you want to actually give them a proper voice in the here and now in a proper way to honor them. And we have explained this to them ad nauseum. And the curse rings are a form of, how can I put this? You can either have this stuck on your privates in some way or on your hands and toes. Sometimes even in your nose, kind of like a bull being pulled by the nose ring. This is unacceptable to us. They haunt properties. They make noises on your roof. That is more boggart and puckwudgie territory, actually. But some fairies are the kind you see in the movie Bright with Will Smith, where you see those that they made fun of him by having them around bug zappers and things of that nature. That would be more of some of the type that put the rings on people. Some types of Aluzi can do it too. And are they considered Earth Guardians? No. They were also brought here in the times of the Great Seeding. And they were here to protect different areas of land. The Will-o'-the-Wisp were also brought here in the times of the Great Seeding. The ones people think are swamp gas that look like little wisps. These are plasmoid life forms that are very similar, like as in Stephen said, they're very similar in makeup to his own species, kind of gaseous plasmoid. They were here to help protect as well. If you saw them, they would look like an orb or electrical orb, but they are more of a plasmoid form, and they're quite dangerous, actually. They live in swampy areas. That's why they were accused of being swamp gas. And there's another more advanced version of them called the Duad, and those are more the Lady of the Lake, Will-o'-the-Wisp types. Those are mostly female, and they would take the form of a lady in white wispiness on the Lake of Avalon. And I make fun because they tend to be very dramatic and magical and sparkly. But they hate my guts at the moment. They're I would akin them to the sparkly vampires of Twilight, but and Isaac gets a kick out of that because he tends to shine himself because he's white as a ghost. And yes, but in this instance, these other fairies have to stop this because they get butthurt at the slightest thing and they wreak havoc across the board. They were making so the chimes didn't move, and they were making them so they wouldn't go even in a high wind. That's them. When you see chimes that don't go in a high wind and go when there is no wind, this is them. They normally are very happy and boisterous, and they will help you, and they listen to your wisdom. But if you don't exude wisdom at every moment, if you have human moments, especially if you have a high psionic capabilities like yourselves, like all four of you, Laverne, his mother, you, and him, they tend to get butthurt that you're not in this esoteric, wise place all the time, which I want to state for the record that is highly unrealistic. They are in this state when others are in this state. They learn as you learn as they learn, if this makes sense. People go to them for wisdom, they're coming to you for wisdom. And if they see somebody they like is distraught, they want to know why. And that person says why, then they go after and can be hired by those said people. You've heard this part before, to go and put these curse rings on people. And this could stifle a number of different things. It can make people more vulnerable to other attacks, like from the mouth or from demonic sources, attachments. They can throw attachments too because they get creepy this way. They just grab something and throw it. But it would affect abundance. It would affect how people see you. It would affect how people either ignore or not ignore or see you as good or bad, depending on whether you fall into their favor. Why do you think the people in Ireland leave shit for them? They don't want the other half of that equation, and it's resulted in them being afraid of fairy curses. This is where this is. The rings are shackles. They can shackle anything, including what he calls cock rings. They do this, and you had your witch out there, or Isis. We love this, actually. Love it, because we see what she's done to you guys. She was famous for rallying up a bunch of fairies and being almost like a queen to them and sending things out. It's like that fairy queen you see in Willow with all the little ones around them. She was known for doing this and trying to stir them up, knowing they were from the time of the Great Seeding, and then they would they followed the leader sometimes, like kind of like the Pied Piper of Hamelin, where he gets the rats out of Hamelin. It's essentially like that. I'm not equating them to rats. But you know what I'm saying. Also, there was also a video you guys saw on that paranormal show, called on video show, where they showed one of the fairies that came out of the tree. This is one of the types I'm talking about that do the cursing. The Illusies do it too, but this other one is an Illusi variation that looks kind of like very rugged. Then you have the other ones that have the little pointed head and have like almost like an insect-like appearance. And then you have also a fairy type like that little skeleton they found that time with the weird head. That is a fairy type or a fae type. Fae can be very finicky. It's not the tree fae that are upset. The guys that are aligning your trees, they are not upset. These guys are grateful you're actually trying to help the area. They're very innocent, and they're like, you see their likeness in the two Maleficent movies with Angelina Jolie, the little ones. You see some of their likeness. They're great. They're awesome. It's these other little SOBs. See, they don't want me to speak. It's these other little SOBs that are doing this. That they're also trying to make you think it's all the rest of them. And because they're butthurt over the situation with one you called the forebear. That's really what they're upset about. And they're just being kind of dumb at the moment.
So you did mention that they were brought in, but they were brought in as protectors, which I find that so fascinating because
Yeah.
they're so small.
If you get thousands of them, they like a swarm of bees. A swarm of bees can go swarm around somebody, or hornets, essentially. Imagine each one of those hornets having the power to essentially affect someone's, you want to say luck, or perception, or perception, and perspective. They're not unlike Jinn in this way, where you can change the luck threads, kind of like that DS9 episode where the guy had the ability, the game that changed everybody's luck. This is like that. Jinn have this capability. They're not unlike Jinn. It's the Anunnaki slash Orions dicked with Jinn DNA when that species was captured and assimilated centuries ago or millennia ago, whereas then they adapted it to themselves. The Orions did. And basically, angels and not all angels and demons are jinn, but all jinn are angels and demons, kind of thing. Not all jinn are angels and demons, but all angels and demons have jinn DNA. That means they created something that they then adapted to themselves. So with that, fairies though came before that, with the time of the great seeding. They needed something, and will-o'-the-wisp types to be able to guard something that a sword couldn't be taken to them later. It would have to be some form of magic. It'd be just like with Jinn with Solomon's ring kind of thing. Only certain tech could move him. What do you think he was using on Asmodeus or Asmodai in the mythology? He was using a piece of technology that was very similar to a sound frequency that would trap him and make him and his people build Solomon's temple. This was seeding technology. It's like the two brothers that built Nan Madol using the terraforming tech that had been broken for so long. They were just using it like Lincoln Logs at that point. They lifted it with sound and moved it. It's the same thing. Sound and light can become a cage, like a force shield, or it can repel or a repulsor beam or a tractor beam. So this is essentially what was being done with that.
So, are you saying that they were brought here and kind of kept in a way that they were just released to do what needed to be done and then put kind of like you're saying back in the cage?
Not unlike different what your government SSP factions do by keeping demons in a cabinet, or Wendigo in a cabinet somewhere and unleash them, which then took out an Inuit village, stuff like that. Things do escape from time to time, or keep creatures in a cage, or like you have a zoo, things of that nature. That's why when you went to Japan and saw those demons in the cages, this is essentially what was being represented there.
So over time, because they're obviously not in cages anymore.
No.
Okay. And so over time, they just grew and multiplied, let's say themselves, and just kind of do their own things. But then they may run across somebody that they take a liking to.
Mm-hmm.
And then there seems to be some sort of loyalty to that person.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And then they have their genetics that say, if they're being harmed, to go out and do these things. It's in their DNA.
It's in their DNA. It's kind of like a genie's lamp, and you rub it and the genie comes out, has to be obedient to you, kind of thing. I said they're not unlike the jinn. They're not exactly the same. Jinn tend to be fairly manipulative. These beings are at least 50-50. You can at least convince them to go. Belligerence doesn't work. You have to find negotiative tactics with them. But we were able to repel a lot of them. I can't promise they won't try it, but I would highly recommend a peace be struck between both sides, showing that you are at least in favor of of Earth concerns, which we are. We see this quite clearly as a people. They, on the other hand, only were coming and going. They weren't here all the time. The tree fae, on the other hand, they're here all the time up in your gumball trees and everything. They would prefer those trees not go, unless it's an emergency of some kind, where it like falls or something. But not that they want this, but they're also in this tree that's next door and everything. And one you have not spoken to in an age, Ben Orkfoil, for instance, wanted to pass along a message to you as well. He's not butthurt. The Dakak people are not butthurt at anything of the sort. They are a type of fae, yes. They're as old as the hills, literally, and they are the types that help in decay and regrowth. They are fine. The Dakak people have been around as well. You haven't noticed them except possibly in a leaf blowing around or something like that. They tend to play dead most of the time. It's kind of creepy, a cadaver blowing around your yard. But they give me the finger for doing that. But it's not a cadaver, okay? But it's a joke. But some of them don't have a sense of humor. But the Dakak people are fine. It's this one isolated group segments of Aluzi and some woodland fairies. Now, some of the ones that were in those days were not fairies. Some were tall white variations and dark elves variations, and their family trees from again the Lemurian Atlantean period. But this, you were right on the money, pegging the time frames for some of these things. The merging the DNA, like with that other people, and this some of these other beings. But I will say that they are a tough cookie. The Lyrans tend to be fairly irritated with them too. They see them as bugs, even though they can be the same size as them or taller. A small Aluzi could take on a tall white, could take on a white Draco, or even an alpha Draconis, like a white one, or even an aquatic or a twatic, as him and Richie called them. Difficulty, but they could, because the aquatics or the twatics are not, they're interdimensional, but they're not shape-shifting type beings, as you would think they would be, being from another universe. But with the Aluzi, they know better. No, they know better than this. They have been around you for long periods of time, but they have an odd learning curve where they stick with something, but when they see the shift, see life shift and then shift in attitude, they think it's a derailing based on old esoteric information that was given to them a long time ago. They absorb what was given to them, and then they just parrot it back to people sometimes. And when this occurs, people think they're getting wisdom from spirit, and they're just echoing things from the past at times. Not always. I'm not going to dump on the entire group, but they do this, and they go, "Yes, this is this," and everybody's like, "Yes," and then people bounce ideas back to them, and then they parrot it back, like the Polly parrot, that toy in Toys R Us or Toy Store that would repeat things back. You are a parrot. Parrots are still wise, but they still mimic. And then you also have mimicker demons and ghouls and stuff like that do that mimicry. You saw that in your Doctor Who, where they did that mimicry to learn from, and nanotech will do that. That's where you get some of your hieroglyphic emoji type of language from, is computer language. But with this, though, they will go along, start sharing wisdom that was from the past. They remember. They were programmed to remember what people said, like a record. Kind of like the benevolent Earth Mother with the Akashic type of thing. They were programmed to remember, so they knew if something was removed, they could rebuild it. Just like they can place the rings back because they rebuild when you remove them. Not unlike a computer. They're not a computer, but they're not unlike one because they were programmed with one. Or a very advanced, like, maturation chamber that had thousands in them, like an egg. Open them up, here's a bunch of baby fairies flying around going, eh, and then they go off and do their thing. Not unlike baby birds. But they were bred to do that job. So they parrot that back, and then when somebody goes off of that information, even if it's newly updated, they don't always recognize the update unless you're actually actively speaking to them and showing them this is an update. Now, if you happen to have a soul from that period, which a lot do, they will go off that and go, "Oh, you're telling me a set of instructions again." So This is essentially, some people call it a naivety from nature. Okay, I can see where some seers are getting this from. One could see that in that perspective, certain perspective. But it's not the only thing. Now, if you give them the updated information in a kind way and in a seemingly respectful way, they will see this as a set of instructions to go by. Even though he said about certain differences of opinion and what he perceives as a betrayal, the other side is perceiving it as a betrayal. So therefore, uh, they are coming at him because the other side was giving that information. You see, and they could pit different fairy tribes against fairy tribes, also tall white tribes against Lanyalosian groups that you work with, against some Lanyalosian partial variations and dark elf tribes. You see, they're also related to some of these groups. See, and some of these fairies are on Lanulos too. And so one type came in to help you, another type came in to condemn. You see what I mean? They all kind of were created roughly in the same places in different dimensional spaces. You have also the elves of Tirnanog, that's your Lanulos, but some fairy groups and mer groups are actually interrelated from the same dimensional spaces. Also, some of the same species started creating some of these variations long before the Orions were ever thought of. And these are from ages long forgotten in your Earth record, in the times that that record was created. If something differs, or if they think that you're not helping the cleanup, like your mer will go, why didn't you pick up that piece of trash? Why did you take too many shells and sand here? They bitch. I'm just saying. We have a good relationship with them. We harangue them a lot. They harangue us a lot, but it's they sometimes will act this way a little bit too. Their sentries, you probably noticed up the East Coast, do this a lot. They're good. They're kind people, but some of them can be dicks. The ones that are on the West Coast are roughly kind of the same. You have your classic mermaids up by Ireland, all of them. They kind of all do the same. They're great people. They walk amongst you quite often on the beaches. They would look like great people. They would change like in your Pirates of the Caribbean 4, where the mermaid could walk on land. The Blackbeard one with the mermaid. That they do that, but not to get too far off track. These other guys can walk amongst you as well. They can shapeshift. They can become your size. And also you have wood nymphs, wood fairies, all these other things that can also draw you in. Some of these are also variations of Tir Nanog and Lanulos and other worlds within worlds variations, like your green children of Hutlet. This is very similar in this way, and some of them also had children here and also can travel interdimensionally, and sometimes we'll get butthurt that people are in certain areas and all of this. And cross, just like our people, if you come close to a colony, we will encourage you to leave if we can't have you there. You have to use your discernment and intuition. You know the rest. But with these guys, if you could give them another set of instructions, like basically saying this, basically reaffirm to them if you encounter them anytime soon, to reaffirm to them that the information is being updated, the situation is updated. Some of them are slow to get this because, like your pigeons, like your carrier pigeons, they were around humans for thousands of years. Now people consider them pests because they're in the cities pooping on everything and being around humans. They were dependent on humans. It's because they were their genomic structure shows this. This is why they're around humans. People consider them flying rats, and it's because they're around humans a lot. Because that's the programming that's been instilled, the training, and it travels genetic memory. So it's kind of cruel to consider them this way, and you have to know your history. The same goes with fairies. From the time of the Great Seeding, they were given these instructions much longer than carrier pigeons were being depended on by soldiers, by messengers, by people just wanting to send messages back and forth. All of that. It's the same kind of premise.
So I think it's important to say though that although you can have problems with them, you can live along with them just fine.
You can live
well.
alongside of them quite easily, like you could with pigeons, doves, any of the bird species. These might look like tiny little naked people, but they could beat the ever living crap out of a Draco. So Yeah, get along with them, but don't be in fear of them like some of the Irish clans are. Hang on. And we're talking about you. Yes. Uh, please back. You're listening. Yes. Do not reach. He says this too. We have our boundaries too. So your leadership should be listening. You guys are listening. Yes. You are also being given a set of instructions. Now, listen to all that has been input and downloaded into the record. Yes? All right. This even though they've had millions of years to evolve, it's just like some of your cat beings went good or bad too. Not just Lyrans, I'm talking about the ones that were summoned around again in the times of Atlantis as a familiar, dimensional familiar. When Atlantis and Egypt fell, the ones that were summoned just wandered. They eventually became their own species. In Israel, rock golems were summoned, for protection. They became their own species after the magic to put them away was lost. Some jinn became more sentient, others degraded back, and they had to be put back in their bottles in the Middle East. It's all kind of the same story in some respect, but just different races and species. It's kind of the same thing. They were familiars that were created, and they couldn't be put back. Wendigo are the same thing, but these were genetic abominations, very much like your Neanderthal ghouls that the Earth had to integrate into the life and death and rebirth cycle, like Ben Ortfoil's people, but only in this way, the more gross, cannibalistic way, non-corporealized, and turned into those that suck up death energy. It came in handy, kind of like maggots eating a corpse kind of thing. So it was even an invasive species can be integrated. So this is essentially what you are up against.
So were they in their beginning existence of wherever they were on whatever planet they were on or anything like that? Were they originally by the, let's say, Orions or somebody? Were they created, or were they a living entity that had developed on a planet that was then carted off elsewhere?
Some of the DNA was carted off from elsewhere, kind of like in your Gene Roddenberry's Earth Final Conflict. The Talons took the Skrill DNA and then turned it into the arm weapons that their companions have.
Mhm.
It's like that, where they did take some DNA, combined it with others, and voila. But they were the ones that altered it. In the times of the Great Seeding, however, they took life forms as they were from other areas and land masses from other areas and planted them here. Some tweaks were made. The Orions made a shitload of tweaks. The Anunnaki did too when they got a burr up their ass and wanted to create things to do their bidding. When they got into the slovenly stage, they wanted to just program some life forms and watch them build shit. So now you had your builder giants that built shit too. But I know you like Poseidon and Odin, but they entered those phases too. So it wasn't just Enlil that created the Ajiji. The Ajiji are one thing, and the Turn are one thing of many. But the original fairy-like, think that the Skrill and Earth Final Conflict, they were fairy-like, elementalish on another planet, and then you saw the character of Liam Kincaid dump them in a rainforest here because that planet was no more, and it was a similar environment, and gave them a home here on Earth. It's very similar, where they could breed and rebuild their species. They were asexual. So the same thing. These guys are gender based, but in some cases, sometimes they are all female and just replicate, depending on what type and how much tampering there was. Very much like how you were told that intersex was created by, ended up being, and Lil's doing after he took genitals away and then Enki gave them back and ended up with non-binary and intersex. Think of some of the mutations as something similar to something that was said and was tampered with. That's what you're up against today with some of these variations. I'm not saying all the species were tampered with out there, but they did their own tamperings too. They're not all faultless in this. Some of the hedge betting of the gods took place. Like, I'll take this and I'll up the ante by adding wings. I'll up the ante by adding horns. I'll up the ante by adding hooves. I'll up the ante by giving them a weapon and making them grow in size by giving them some Titan DNA and making sure they shrink to the size of a pea. Stuff like that. So this is essentially the rolling of the dice that went on that added to the confusion.
Right. And, I'm guessing this is kind of a template, it sounds like, of what happened as the universes, let's say, were transversed by these races that were master geneticists. And then they would create something on something, and then it would kind of grow. And then it was more of like, well, we're going to step back and watch and see how this flourishes and goes over time, because they seem to go places, do things, then step back.
Yeah, they'll step back and wait for something to watch. Sometimes they used to use time dilation. Feels like you've seen your Stargate SG-1 where millions of years can pass in a few minutes kind of thing. They used to try that, and it just didn't work the same. It's also like that weird planet in Star Trek Voyager that looked like a donut because it was faster moving there than out here kind of thing, and more ages passed. They tried that. It didn't quite work the same. So they had to let things just play out over a lengthy period of time just to see what would take place. Just to see if they could tweak and interfere as they went along. If they let too big of a gap in there, it might die off and fail. So they wanted to monitor it and add as they went along. Add a bit of a genome here, a bit of genome here, just like your Ebens, like you said with the 144,000 or the indigo children, golden children, crystal children, rainbow children, any of them. They added in a little bit of their DNA and waited. Or a few generations. Add a little bit of DNA and waited. Add a little bit of DNA and waited. That's essentially what needs to be done to basically to do it right. In order to cook a meal right, you must monitor it.
Well, that brings up a whole nother story that I'm just going to ask a quick question on. Because again, all of this time that humans have been, let's just say, experimented on, and the Ebens have been allowed to do this, I'm assuming allowed to do this, on some of this with the tinkering of with some in the human species. But I would hope there would become a point that tampering would kind of stop. It's one thing, again, as a society matures and gets in its own thing, that you decide, I'm going to tamper on myself, as they did, but it was with full knowledge and consent. Some of this just isn't like that now. And I think that's what really, really bothers me, that who's actually watching over, let's just call it an initial template of something that on its own is allowed to grow and explore, versus constantly something else tampering with it to try and make it more like that.
Yeah, see, the Forbosi did this as well, where they would have some rules, kind of like a prime directive is for Star Trek. They waited for a warp-bearing, spacefaring species. The Forbosi would wait to see if someone had a strong spiritual core first. They saw that as like the litmus test to see if they could withstand genetic tampering. So the ones that pulled the eugenics crap usually did this. In some fashion, they waited for something to show up on its own, then added a little bit and waited, added a little bit and waited. Forbosi waited until they hit a spiritual core, then they added all the mathematical and brains type of stuff on top of it, and voila, you have then Poseidon and Enki and Enki and Enlil and Anu coming in and going, wait a minute. I think I like this particular template. I'm going to copy this, and then I'm going to take this and one up, and now we have unicorns. Now you have horses. Ta-da! Thank you, thank you. That's what Poseidon did to please Athena, and the Forbosi were pissed. The Alarum were pissed because the Alarum's DNA, that was that familiar species, was taken to create unicorns, and eventually you have horses and centaurs. Essentially, all horses are centaurs. So. Poseidon wanted to take and went, I can use this. They all kind of stole from each other. They still kind of do it, but they don't do it as much because it would get noticed. And the GF kind of, and this is where they win in this case, they kind of frown on some of it, but they don't frown on all of it. It's just sanctioned things that were out in the galaxy. You're not allowed to create some horrible freaking abomination that would eat a planet or something like that. There are limits, like you go to a doctor and get a change done and stuff like that, knowing that it would not corrupt the species. There are known things that work, I will say. That Camino species that's out there, sometimes they're a little bit too brainy for their own good. The same with the Ebens. They tend to be extremely, how can I put it? They're kind of naive, thinking that they can just extinct their species and integrate themselves slowly into humanity, and it would go unnoticed. Big heads tend to get noticed. And no, Isaac, they're not mongoloids. Thank you. Right. That you called the Ama that, you called the rain that time, but we get the joke. And then the thing of it is, though, within his joke is wrapped truth, because sometimes that's stunted and you get things like Down syndrome, you get some types of autism, and you not just stuff nowadays. Sometimes the Anunnaki were creating slaves, and they dumbed down the intelligence and beefed up the strength. It was like a guy your father mentioned that was a worker, that he had low intelligence but had big muscles. This is where this comes from. This is this kind of tampering. What your George Carlin would say, the prick waving dick fight thing cannot keep going. Some species will go, hey, they'll even sit around and go, hey, I know what we can do. And some of them are bored when they do this. And they showed this in Gene Roddenberry's Andromeda, where a purple kid or a purple guy got on this planet, caused a war, and the other purple girl trans said, oh, he was probably just bored. This is what happens sometimes. And your actor that played your smoking man in X-Files went bored. He wrecked a society. Proper reaction. This is what happens on Earth sometimes, and has happened in the past. Where even like in your Gene Roddenberry's Earth Final Conflict, you had the alien named Ma'el was watching Irish people and knew where to tweak societies, what plants to remove, what DNA to introduce, things of this nature over a period of time. This was an accurate depiction. They would sit back in cairns, sit back in observatories like your Federation and Star Trek, watching a primitive culture, like when they watched that Mentakan culture that looked like Vulcans and Romulans, went back and watched them to see how they would evolve, and didn't interfere because like a prime directive. They just wanted to see where they could watch. The thing of it is, on Earth, they watched, interfered just enough, or just enough, like leaving a bit of metal here and there to mine, knowing full well that somebody smart enough would be able to figure out how to perform metallurgy. You see, sometimes it went too far, and voila, you have Rome. It's like, oh crap, that they actually formed an empire and started conquering our neighbors. Oh shit, that kind of thing. So then came the hedge bettings of the gods, where they'd bet on armies and just give them tools to fight each other in a big chess game, tri-dimensional chessboard kind of thing. That went nuts back in the Hellenistic period. But that went with that basically went off like floated like a lead balloon, essentially, with some of us, some of our people. So we just kind of went back, went, oh crap. But now you don't really see that as much, but you do see it. You see bits of that on your news. You do see some hedge betting going on. Your theory of puppets is part of this. Your 100 years disclosure narrative or contract is also very similar, but it's a more organized version of it. And the branch and bracket treaties are kind of a more organized version of a hedge bet. But they see it as more sophisticated because it's pen to paper. But it is the same thing as far as we are concerned. But it just is more sophisticated and less violent. They got their head out of their butt after a while and basically became more intellectual about it. But we consider it to be the same thing.
Okay, well, thank you.
As a people, we do anyway.
Right.
Even the other clans do, actually. The Moot does too. So, yeah.
So, just gonna give you any last words before we close this one off today?
Yes. Just know that different strokes for different folks. You run into some of these other species. Some will appreciate might. Others will appreciate intellect and brains. Others will appreciate energy and solitude and reverence for nature, depending who you run into. Just know there is a whole galaxy of people like this. There's a whole set of interversal dimensions of like this. So you must know how to speak when you run across. It's like that scene in Star Trek Next Generation where Wesley runs across this human-looking alien when he's at Starfleet Academy, and this alien insults him. And then he yells at him back, and he goes, "I like you, human," because Wesley notices the webbed hand. And the Admiral goes, "And why did this work?" And he goes, "Though some species look human, they are not." And he said a particular species name, said this race considers human kindness as phony social behavior, so you have to be mean to them. Klingons, they're amalgam of all the races that we're talking about, Vikings and the rest of them, warrior poet types and all this other stuff. You would have to basically yell at them and be a warrior. You have to know who to talk to and how to talk to them. So just word of warning to people, take some hints from Star Trek because they actually added this in a lot, despite what other messages they've stuck in there. This is some of the truth that was put in there. Pay attention to this because you get out there in the galaxy, you are going to have to adapt to different species. Like, say, the first time somebody says what you think is stupid out there, and you're correcting them, and you might cause a misunderstanding. You have to learn how to hit the ground running and basically adapt to the situation. This is what we are saying. You think it's rough with the energies at the moment. Wait till you get some bickering, weird-looking AT with a long neck and beady eyes, basically pissed at you because you called him Four Eyes or a Viewmaster or some crap like that. And an insectoid where you said he stinks. They do stink. I'm just saying that the odor is offensive, and basically you telling them they need deodorant might piss a few of them off. Just saying. Or they might laugh. We laugh. We laugh at them often. I'm just saying that that you'll run across these things. Trust me. So this is all I have this evening.
So thank you. Appreciate you coming in.
Thank you. Thank you all. I am Orlog. I'm usually out on the West Coast with my clan around the edge of near the Pacific Rim and the Fontaine area. That's where my clan comes in and out. So thank you, everybody. I can afford to say that because we move about a lot. So up and down and all over the place. So we're not in any danger. So just like the ones in Ottawa, Canada, you can talk about them because they're not really in a lot of danger there. So thank you. And Spirit Week. Okay. That could have almost been a World Sasquatch, but this was actually interesting for being on a Q&A. So yeah. Okay, this is actually quite interesting. Oh boy, that was deep into that one, and that went a little longer than I thought it would. So that was interesting about the fairies. We've had troubles with some of them, so him saying this was interesting. So I don't know if you have anything to add to Joanna before we do this. Okay. Okay. The last affirmation and blessing to the assignment known as Earth. Just know that I did it my way, Valiant Thor. He's being his usual self with that. So I now close this circle within true benevolence and no conflicting agendas as of this moment in time. So thank you everybody for watching the show. Bye-bye now.